Resources are the backbone for any kind of development. It is impossible to develop any area without availability of various kinds of resources. In fact, resource and development go hand in hand. Resources carry the burden of development and so prosperity on its shoulders. The development is a process of evolution which is taking its appropriate shape and place since prehistoric times, from hunting and food gathering to modern equipped technological advancement. This development laid the foundation of resource utilization to resource extinction and consequently environmental mismanagement. After reading this module, you will learn about meaning of resource, resource and wealth, some discarded ideas and popular misconception about resources, resource, resistance and neutral stuff, functional theory of resources, dynamic concept of resources and classification of resources. The scope of resource geography encompasses the characteristic of natural resources of the earth, their production and utilization. Thus, the subject matter of resource geography: number 1, study of characteristics of natural resources, their assessment and qualification. Second, study of human resources, resource utilization by man within limits set by environmental conditions. Third, study of resource utilization and development and techniques for their planning. Fourth one, conservation and management of resources. Etymologically, resource refers to two separate words, re and source, that indicate anything or substance that may occur unhindered many more times. The term resource had no special significance till the early part of 20th century. As a human being, we need a platform to live, to develop. The platform was provided to us by nature in the form of land, water, etc., which could be subdivided into various subgroups, and these all are technically defined as resources. Only in 1933, when the eminent professor of economics Eric W. Zimmerman promulgated this famous concept of resource, the idea became so popular that numerous articles and papers started pouring in contemporary economic geographical literature. Urgent need was felt to identify new concept as a separate and important branch of study. Resource popularly signifies a source or possibility of assistance, an expedient, means of support, means to attain given end, capacity to take advantages of opportunities, that upon which one lies for aid, support or supply. Professor Zimmerman's inimitable definition runs: the word resource does not refer to a thing or a substance, but to a function which a thing or a substance may perform, or to an operation in which it may take part, namely the function or operation of attaining a given end, such as satisfying a want. In other words, the word resource is an abstraction reflecting human appraisal and relating to function or operation. According to Rees, resources are defined by man, not by nature. In a very defined way, we can say resources are what we use. Thus, man defines resource as materials, areas or living things considered useful or value to a particular culture. Zimmerman's functional approach holds that nature is meaningless. In his terms, it is merely a natural stuff. until people identify particular aspects or elements of it that can be used. Neutral stuff becomes resources when cultural and technological circumstances permit it to be appraised as such. So, resource satisfies individual human wants to attain social objectives. It also refers to the positive interaction between man and nature. Man is of course the most important and integral part of resource creation, as he is situated in the top of the hierarchy of resource consumption. Only the satisfaction of human beings converts anything or a substance into a resource. A thing or a substance is not considered as resource when it fails to give satisfaction to human beings. Proven reserves of petroleum in the midst of inaccessible terrain or in the abyss is not considered resource, as they fail to yield any satisfaction to entire society or individual. Geothermal energy in this contemporary world is considered to be the most useful resource, but till recently this heat flow was not considered as resource because man was absolutely ignorant about its uses. Natural resources are cultural, technical and economic appraisals of elements in nature that can be applied to fulfill social objectives and goals through specific natural processes, which was said by Harvey in 1996. There are considerable risks in resource led growth depending upon the availability of resources. These risks are amenable to mitigation because they are largely the result of poor management of resource development. Anything present in the nature is only a natural stuff until and unless man finds it useful. Man, according to his want and ability and culture, not only create resource but also destroys it. Here the origin of culture acts both as a stimulus of cultural progress and as a cause of friction in resource utilization, as shown in the figure. So, if you see the figure, we can understand the man, culture and nature relationship. Man, his wants and abilities, they create culture, and this culture leads to again nature, where it is a natural stuff. So, whatever the nature it is giving, it is a kind of thing where it is man is open to culture and nature. The resource must possess two important properties, that is functionability and utility. To define anything or substance as resource, one must critically examine whether it has the property of both utility and functionability. The presence of both utility and functionability is mandatory for the resource creation. For example, a bottle of poison has functionability, but it has got no utility value as food. The functionability is also the function of space and time. The resource of yesteryears may not be considered as resource today. Resource considered by any one country may be considered as waste product by another country. Example, frog is considered as delicious food in Europe while it is not edible in large section of India. Petroleum was not considered as resource until 1859, since the world's first commercial oil well was dug at Titusville, Pennsylvania in USA. In a day-to-day life, a common man often uses the terms resource and wealth for same purpose and meaning. Both the words signify the same expression, but in economics and resource study, these words convey separate meanings. Wealth, as stated by noted economics Keynes, consists of all potentially exchangeable means of satisfying human wants. So, wealth must possess utility and functionability, scarcity and transferability, but wealth is always measurable. Wealth can be expressed in terms of measuring units like rupees, dollars, etc. In this manner, culture cannot be considered as a wealth, as it cannot be expressed by any measuring unit. On the contrary, resource may be tangible as well as intangible substances. Anything satisfying human wants can be termed resource, be it tangible or not. Wealth is synonymous with valuables, that is, it should be scarce, while resources may be ubiquitous or abundant. For example, sunshine, air, etc. So, coming to different properties of wealth and resources, all wealths are resource, but all resources are not wealth. Resource incorporates much more than wealth in a sense that culture, technology, innovative power, skill and different other aspects are included in the realm of resource. Here we will discuss about some discarded ideas and popular misconceptions about resources. Since time immemorial, consciousness about resource is a part of both individual and society. In fact, when human beings began community life to attain security and opulence, individuals started to gather wealth and power for future resource creation. For the three basic necessities of survival, that is food, shelter and clothing, man had no other option but to be aware about the resources. Ever since the Industrial Revolution 1760, the values, ethics, culture, community life, agrarian economy all received severe blow. New concepts of social welfare state, ultra capitalism, economic colonialism affected human life. The increasing gap between haves and have nots enhanced internal social tensions. To combat this, emergence of socialism, communism again increased the differences between different schools of thought. According to the prevailing changes in society in different era, the concept of resources had also gone through changes in harmony with the space and time. And the major popular misconception about resource in earlier periods were: first, substances or tangible things like coal, copper, petroleum etc. are resources. Invisible or intangible aspects like peace, culture, wisdom, policy decisions, know-how, knowledge, freedom cannot be considered as resource. Only natural things or substances freely bestowed by Mother Earth can be considered resource, and resource cannot be created. Human populations were not considered as a resource. Only the quantum and magnitude of substances, not their usability or function ability and quality were measured. Resource was considered as mere static and fixed assets. Its mobility, dynamism and expansion ability was totally ignored. The concept of resistance was totally unknown. So, matter full of resistance and no function ability was also considered as resource. In pre-Zimmermann era, only tangible or material substances were considered resources. Different minerals like iron ore, copper, bauxite, different fuels like coal, petroleum etc. were considered resource, while intangible things like peace, culture, wisdom, policy decision etc. were not considered as resource. So, in the words of Professor Zimmermann, whereas less important visible and intangible aspects such as health, social harmony, wise policies, knowledge, freedom are ignored, even though possibly these latter are more important than all the coal, iron, gold and silver in the world put together. In fact, resources evolve out of the dynamic interaction of all these factors. In those days, widespread belief was resource cannot be created, it is a free gift of nature. Only the natural things or substances can be considered as resource. Creation, modification or extension of resource was practically unknown to the medieval world. The role of man was grossly underestimated in the earlier times. Only after the resource concept was introduced, role of man in the overall resource creation process was clearly understood. In this context, we can recall the legendary marks of the Zimmermann, that is, man's own wisdom is his premier resource, the key resource that unlocks the universe. Considering resource a static or fixed asset was another misconception in those days. In reality, the potential ability of resource cannot be measured precisely, as always it may increase with improved technological advancement. Zimmerman opined that resource is as dynamic as the civilization itself. Early geographers were totally ignorant about the property of resistance hidden within the things or substances. If resourcefulness is considered as positive aspect of resource, resistance is the opposite to that of resource, like assets and liabilities or profit and loss. Coming to resource and neutral stuff, there is a total antagonistic relationship between resource and resistance, like light and shade. This inverse relationship is the key issue in the overall scheme of resource creation. Anything or any process that restricts substance becoming resource is called neutral stuff. Fertility of soil is resource, but barrenness is resistance. Rain may be considered resource, but flood is resistance. In the same manner, knowledge is a key resource, while ignorance is the worst type of resistance. In this connection, the concept of neutral stuff has been introduced by Professor Zimmerman. Anything or any substance, be it tangible or intangible, should be either resource or neutral stuff. If anything or substance does not contain function, ability or utility value, it is termed as neutral stuff. A neutral stuff should not necessarily remain neutral forever. What is considered neutral stuff today may transform into resource tomorrow. Man's knowledge, wisdom and technological innovation may transform neutral stuff into precious resources. Example, petroleum was not considered resource until 1859 because man was quite ignorant about its uses. While the development of science and technology, it is now considered as a mainstay for harnessing energy. The process of economic development is directly proportional with the rate of conversion of neutral stuff into resource. The advancement of modern civilization is synonymous with the transformation of neutral stuff into resource. If we peep through the windows of history, it reveals that despite having enormous amount of minerals, water resources, human resources, wealth, etc., some countries could not develop themselves, while others, without having any significant minerals, water, etc., because of their technology, skill, zeal, nation pride and simple endeavor, were able to transform their own meager neutral stuff into resources and ultimately witnessed meteoritic rise. Bihar has about double the total resources of Japan, yet Bihar is one of the, if not poorest states in India, while Japan's development is unique. So, minimization of resistance is the only way to maximize resource creation. Resources were defined as means of attaining given ends, that is, individual wants and social objectives. Means take their meaning from the ends which they serve. As ends change, means must also change. This statement of Zimmerman clearly states that resource creation is a function of space and time. With increasing knowledge, function of resource may enhance. A primitive man may not be able to harness resource from a substance, but a supra-animal modern man may, by his scientific Midas touch, transform such simple substance into a precious resource. To a man of animal level, resistance plays a very dominant role, where nature possesses obstacle for resource creation. But to a modern man, knowledge plays a key role to convert natural stuff into resource. The tropical Africa is well endowed with huge water resources. Due to backward economy and technological drawbacks, inhabitants of that region cannot convert it into energy. On the contrary, the Japanese were able to produce huge energy from far less water resources. This is because of scientific knowledge, expertise and greater economic development. The advancement of civilization is the product of expansion of human information base. Information about minerals like coal, petroleum, iron ore, copper, etc., and about agriculture, that is high yielding seeds, pesticides, insecticides, etc., and about manufacturing industry, the invention of steam engines, boilers, turbines, converters, etc., were possible with the increasing scientific knowledge. This increasing knowledge reduced the resistance of the natural things or substances and converted them to resources. So, Mitchell had aptly said, incomparably greatness among human resource is knowledge. So, with the efforts of man through the functional or operational process, resource is dynamically created. Without human effort, resource cannot be created because man is the ultimate consumer of resource. Without any operational process, a thing or substance remains neutral. Resource cannot be created, and what is created now may be enhanced or increased with increasing knowledge. So, resource creation process is highly dynamic in nature. As per Professor Hamilton, he says that it is technology which gives value to the natural stuffs which it processes, and as the useful arts evidence, the gifts of nature are remade. With technology on the march, the emphasis of value shifts from the natural to the processed good. So, resource creation process is not static, it is dynamic in nature. The thing or substance considered as natural stuff today may be converted into precious resource tomorrow. Since the beginning of civilization, Paleolithic man started devoting his limited knowledge to convert natural stuff into resource for his own requirement. While the passage of time, the increasing knowledge, man was able to harness more resource from same amount of stuff. Bowman has rightly remarked, the moment we give them human association, they are as changeful as humanity itself. With the increasing need, man frantically explored all possibilities or avenues to expand resource base from his existing stock. So, resource creation is a continuous and need based operation. At the present era, when the world is passing through acute energy crisis, man is exploring possibilities to produce energy from all sources like solar energy, wind energy, geothermal energy, etc. Previously, ocean current was never considered as a resource, but now man is able to convert this force into energy. So, the concept of resource is dynamic, and resource study is a dynamic science. So, classification of resources, we have natural resources, man-made and cultural. In man-made, it is nothing but that is human resource, that is mankind, whereas you have in natural resources renewable and non-renewable. So, it is how we have divided the, we can subdivide the groups. Natural resources are the main material base of regional development. Each and everything which is beyond human intervention is a natural resource. The deficit of natural resource may not be compensated by any other resource. In most cases, natural resources represent specialization of a region, whereas man intervened, man modified, man maintained, man generated and controlled resources are called human resources. Man has developed skills, technologies and ability to generate, develop and use the resources by his mental ability. So, it is said that human mind is the supreme resource for himself. These two groups are further subdivided into different types according to different perspectives. The technological advancement generated a new type of resource known as computer resource, very useful resource that redeemed the workload of man. For economists, capital resource is another kind of resource which is a base for an economy to flourish. Oman in 1971 classified resource depending upon its quantity and variability. 1. The immutable, incapable of much adverse change. 2. Misusable, that is little danger of complete exhaustion, but when improperly used. 3. Exhaustible, that is permanency is dependent upon the methods of use. Similarly, Lassen in 1972 classified resources into 4 groups. 1. Perennial or perceptual resource like earth's properties like air, water, etc. Second one, renewable resources such as plant, animal and soil because they respond to man's manipulation. Third one, non-renewable or fund resource like minerals are included in this group. And the fourth one, amenity resource, it is nothing but the desirable attributes of our cultural environment. Resources may be further classified into various groups depending upon attributes and bases. In general, resources are classified into 2 groups, material resources and non-material resources. So, the material resources are tangible substances like petroleum, iron ore, copper, water, etc. Whereas, non-material resources are intangible resources like health condition, culture, ethics, freedom, environmental harmony, etc. Material or tangible resources are direct, that is freely bestowed by nature, whereas non-material or intangible resources are cultivated by human beings with the help of increasing knowledge. Material resources may again be subdivided into 2 groups, that is organic and inorganic. Organic resources like forest, fish, livestock, whereas inorganic resources like iron ore, manganese, mica, etc. On the basis of durability, resources may be classified into 2 groups again. These are fund or exhaustible resources, that is not everlasting, destroyed forever after use. Coal, petroleum, uranium are the best examples of this. Second one, flow or inexhaustible resources. Supply of resources remain unchanged even after renewed use like the river water, sea wave, sunshine, airflow, etc. Ownership is another parameter to classify a resource. International or world resources owned by global population, that is the total resources owned by all individuals and nations put together. The sum total of all material and non-material resources come under this category. Coming to next one, national resources, the sum total of resources of inhabitants of the nation and resources of the nation itself. Third one, individual resources, both tangible resources, that is property, money, wealth, and intangible resources, that is knowledge, wisdom, health, etc. owned by any individuals is known as individual resources. On the basis of availability of resources, it can be classified into 2 groups, that is ubiquitous and localized. Ubiquitous type of raw material are found everywhere like sunshine, air, etc., while localized raw materials are available only in some places, example petroleum, uranium, iron ore, etc. So, future of resource availability, new resource and alternate resource depend upon resource potential development. In the early 20th century, the mileage of motorcycles were hardly 10 to 15 kilometers per liter, whereas today it is 70 to 90 kilometers per liter. It has been possible by potential development. The potential of resource can be increased by using innovative thinking, recent and advanced technology and value strengthening. We know that technology plays very important role in resource potential development because it decreases the rate of resource dwindling and produces more output on one hand and opens the door of identification and use of new resources on the other hand. In other words, the resource potential provides the base for development. Resource evaluation and management sustainable development is centered in the role of ultimate conservation. Both development and conservation processes need to run with sustainable balance. Conservation is a healthy human relationship with nature for sustainability of natural resources in the process of all round development. International Union for Conservation of Nature and Natural Resources IUCN in its report World Conservation Strategy defined conservation as the management of human use of the biosphere so that it may yield the greatest sustainable benefits to recent generations while maintaining its potentials to meet the need and aspirations of future generation. In fact, the resource utilization, population and environmental conservation form a three-legged stool which is practically very unstable, but conservation strategy can be very useful in maintaining balance between them. Environmental management is an attempt to control human impact on environment and interaction with the environment in order to preserve natural resources. Environmental management focuses on the improvement of human welfare for the present and future generations. Administrative functions that develop, implement and monitor the environmental policy of an organization. Sustainable development is a pattern of resource use that aims to meet human needs while preserving the environment so that these needs can be met not only in the present. The development initiatives should be initiated, but also for generations to come in such a way that the future generations can enjoy the benefits of nature without any compromise. The resources are the fundamental base for the economic growth and development of human society, but their withdrawal from the nature, mode of their use by human being and their disposal for enormous adverse effect on environment. The strategic action plan to redeem the effect on environment is very important, but the strategies of environmental management must be of special consideration. Another important aspect of the environmental management is that whatsoever at local, regional or global level must always keep in mind that earthly resources are finite, so the plans must be created keeping whole world in mind.